Hello, and welcome to the Pikku Kimalainen knitting podcast. My name is Rachel Madhyama, and this is my second episode, which is crazy because I've refilmed the first episode like 8 times. So it's quite a milestone to get to my second episode. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Pikku Kimalainen, or you can just type in my name, Rachel, and you might see me. You'll know it's me because there is a little moon icon on all of my social media pages. There is a groups tab on Ravelry for this podcast, the Pikku Kimalainen Knitting Podcast, and I have to apologize. I've been so busy for the past few weeks and everything's been so crazy that I haven't had time to type up and upload the show notes, although I do have them for the first episode, but I don't really feel too guilty since that group isn't really active right now anyways. There's not much activity on it. But yeah, so I have two finished objects to show you knitting wise today, and actually one sewing sort of finished object. I had actually completed making it a long time ago, however I thought it was, what is my bang doing? I don't know. I'm ready to grow out my bangs. I honestly don't know how to wear them anymore. But I do have one sewing related finished object to show you guys today. And I thought it was worth showing because although this is one of my very first projects that I had finished and does have a few mistakes, it has stuck with me for quite some time and has continually sort of been a staple in my wardrobe, and that is this skirt that I'm wearing. Now, this skirt was actually in many ways already constructed when I first purchased it. I purchased it at the thrift shop, however it was like 8 sizes too big for me, and had a huge iron burn mark like right up here towards where it would zip up. And this skirt is made out of some sort of polyester plastic mix, so you could tell that a lot of the fibers had melted and that part of the fabric was totally useless. So what I had actually done to save it, because I fell in love with the fabric, is I chopped off the top part of the waistband, which was about 5 inches. And since this skirt was sort of a A-line skirt, did not have any pleats or gathers, it was very easy to get a clean cut. I did not have to seam rip or deconstruct anything. And from the fabric that had that burn mark, there was still, you know, a couple feet of fabric that was still usable, so I used that for the waistband. And I was able to get a pretty nice chunk of fabric for the waistband. It is probably the perfect size for a waistband. I like to have my belts just directly under the waistband near the seam because it does tend to get a bit more chunky around that area. So I find it holds my belt in place perfectly if I do not want to add belt loops to that skirt. I inserted an invisible zipper, but it was so early in my sewing career that it's not really invisible at all and falling apart. And so I'm probably going to fix that eventually. I just have to get a zipper foot for my sewing machine. The zipper is the same color as the skirt, so I'm not too worried about it. I'll just fix it when I get to it. But I thought it was worth sharing just because this skirt matches so many things in my wardrobe and I've always stuck with this skirt. I tend to, in many ways, grow out of skirts a lot faster than I do blouses. Skirts and finding, I guess, bottom parts of clothing to fit my wardrobe is still sort of a struggle, although I am creating a capsule wardrobe. And So I think this year I'm going to focus more on sewing skirts that you know, properly tie in my wardrobe. I have done a huge declutter of everything in my life, and now I can sort of categorize and see what parts are missing, mostly in my wardrobe, or like personal hygiene aspects, which when I talk about like minimalism and having few items regarding personal hygiene, I mainly am talking about fair trade products and biodegradable products like wooden toothbrushes. My old plastic toothbrushes are wearing down, so I'm going to order some wooden ones now that I can just compost. But yeah, I've really, I think, done well this year regarding decluttering. Now it's just, I guess, streamlining all of my things and really paying attention to the gaps. But whenever I talk about that, it's mostly just about my wardrobe. Anyways, the first finished object, knitting related, I have to show to you is my Boheme Sweater. You saw this last week. Pretty much all you saw last week was a little bit of a sleeve and the bottom part of the sweater. I made this a cropped sweater so it would not hug my hips because it is quite tight-fitting. I knit the size small and sort of inverted the colors. When you look at the pattern, the dark part is gray and then up here is black. But I was originally wanting to go for, I guess, the sort of inverted colors rather than this, but I had more black yarn than gray yarn, so I decided to do that instead, so I didn't have to order anything else. The sleeves are quite long. I'll probably be wearing this next episode, but I really love that because I can cover up my hands, and the cuff doesn't look too messy when I just fold it back like this, so it works either way. And I am absolutely in love with this. It is knit out of Knit Picks, tweed yarn, and then just some sort of mystery yarn from my stash. And it might be the same weight, I don't know, it looked like the same weight, so I'm going with that. It worked out fine. I did add in a little black strand of thread to make it look not really a bit more rustic, but just to add a bit more texture to my sweater, since I had all of this tweedy texture down here and then it was just going to be, you know, plain gray, so I thought it might be cool to do that. I'm pretty happy with the effect it had. It is a crew neck sweater. It fits my neck perfectly. And I had previously really struggled with getting a nice fitted neck. And I think that just has stuff to do with the construction techniques of different sweaters. Definitely with a seamless yoked sweater like this, you probably won't have those issues. But with all of my seamed sweaters, where you knit panels and then pick up the stitches for the collar, I seem to always have that issue no matter how small of the needles I use. But I'm working on it. But I absolutely love this sweater. The yarn doesn't bother me at all, obviously, because it's superwash, and I'm really trying to decrease the amount of superwash yarn in my stash. I've done pretty well. I've almost knit up my entire stash from this year, and I've just got a few little gray bits and pieces left that I will use for my mountain pillows. I'm waiting to knit this mountain pillow because I do have another gray sweater that I have to make some adjustments on, but I look forward to adding another little mountain to my mountainside family. The next sort of finished object is a pair of socks. These are just plain vanilla socks in one of my hand-dyed yarns. And again, I added in a little thread to put some texture in there. I don't know. I noticed that the yarn looked a bit more lavender colored, even though I used primarily black dye for this, and just a bit of pink to add some speckles and stripes. So I decided to add in some black thread just to make the gray a bit more strong. And I wanted to see the difference in what the yarn looked knit up side by side compared to like plain, just using my plain hand-dyed yarn and then having the black thread put in. And I didn't really mind sort of making that scrappy stripe on this sock since it's near the toe, but I was just really curious to see the difference. And although knitting it up initially here, I did not see a huge difference. Definitely seeing the two techniques side by side cleared things up for me, because for a while I was thinking, why am I even bothering holding this black thread in with the yarn, because it does get tangled quite easily. But in the end, I think it was worth it. It created a very beautiful marled finished object. However, I think I was definitely a bit more stressed out when I knit this sock. It's a bit shorter and slimmer than the first sock I knit. So I'm actually going to frog back this cuff and fix it, but I'm actually considering frogging back maybe to down here on both socks and adding in a colorwork sort of cuff, so when they peek up out of my my boots, you see maybe like deer or moons. I'm not sure. I'm just having fun with it. But yeah, until I feel like working on these again, these are a finished object. Okay, so the next segment obviously is works in progress, and I have quite a few works in progress. I don't really like having a lot of whips on the needles just because it stresses me out. However, a lot of them are color works in progress, and those are really fun to me, and it's really easy to see where you left off with colorwork socks and sweaters, so I'm okay with casting on a ton of those. But you saw these last week. These are my, what are they called? I think they're called the Finial Socks, or Final Socks, but it's spelled a bit different, so I think it's Finial. But when you saw these previously, I had only knit this colorwork motif down here, and then continued down in this orange color, and that is Freya by Valkyrie Fibers. And I just wasn't feeling it because the color was so bright, and I just did not see it fitting in my wardrobe, and I really wanted to wear these socks because I loved the colorwork motif. I loved how this black brown yarn that I dyed sort of toned down and complemented this orange color. And I really wanted to wear this orange color because I absolutely love that the yarn is named Freya. It's on a sparkle base. The yarn is absolutely beautiful, and I just needed to find a pattern that would be worthy of it. So I frogged back the heel. I was about down to here in that huge orange chunk of color when I decided to frog back, and I don't regret it at all. And so I sort of continued this pattern on down the leg, and then when it got to the foot I was a bit bored, so I just did whatever I felt like doing. I really love this leaf pattern, and I'm actually put it in another pair of my socks. But I absolutely love this finished object now, or half-finished object. The other one is still on the needles. I think they're so delicious looking. They remind me of those orange jelly sticks that are covered in chocolate that you like get during Christmas. Those used to be my favorite candy. Now it's black licorice, but whenever I see those, they make me feel really nostalgic because my grandma used to like them a lot. But this is the other sock, and I'm actually going to have to frog back and restart where I picked up the stitches for the heel, just because my stitch count is off and I've got this one really weird slip stitch. I had done this section after a really long day of work and I was waiting for my ride home, and I don't even know what I was thinking working on these. But once I saw that slip stitch, I was like, no, I can't continue on these. I have to go back and fix it when I'm in a better state. But yeah, I think I'm going to call these my orange stick socks. I'm not sure what that candy's called. I'm gonna figure it out. I used to always call it orange sticks, but I know it's called something else. I don't know. But once I finish these, I think I'm going to finish these tonight and then move this pair of socks that I'm working on currently into this project bag. And I'm not using any specific pattern for this pair of socks. I just had some scrap yarn that I wanted to use up. And again, there's that leaf pattern I was talking about. It sort of reminds me of a snake vertebrae, which is pretty cool. So I'm not sure what's gonna go on with these guys. I'm just having fun right now. I used knit picks for the cuff, and then the black yarn is hand-dyed yarn that I just dyed up because I didn't have black yarn, so I did that. And then the white color is Sand Dollar by Valkyrie Fibers. With the yarn I'm using, I just like to use up every last bit of yarn as soon as possible, so I tend to knit with the same yarn over and over if I use it for smaller projects. I think I might put a sort of deer head motif on this sock, like on either side, quite a large one with antlers, and maybe, I don't know, it's going to have some sort of object between its antlers. Maybe it'll have the moon or a pine cone, I don't know. I'm figuring it out as I go. But I'm not sure what I'm going to call those socks yet, because I don't know what they're going to be. They're just my scrappy socks for now. I have, I think, one last work in progress to show you guys, knitting related. And that is this cardigan I'm working on. It is a chunky cable cardigan. The pattern is free on Ravelry. It's by Barocco, and I believe it's called the Edis cardigan. It is knit out of super bulky yarn, and I'm using Lion brand super bulky yarn, but I think it's a bit more bulky than the yarn they're calling for for the pattern. And I was sort of anticipating that, just because I know when it comes to super bulky yarn, I find things sort of jump around a bit. I know that Wool and the Gang super bulky yarn is different from other super bulky yarns that I've experienced in the past. So I was expecting this to be quite a bit larger than the pattern called for. I'm knitting a size small, and I want this to sort of be like a coat or a robe. So I added an extra repeat before the armholes, so it is quite long on me. I'm pretty sure it almost goes down to my knees. Yeah, that's about how long it is right now. It goes past my skirt. But I really love that. I'm really excited to finish it, and this is knitting up very fast because it is made from super bulky yarn. However, it does make my hands hurt quite a bit. I'm just not used to, I guess, the movements that come with knitting with thicker needles and thicker yarns. because I do prefer knitting on smaller needles with fingering weight yarns. I'm losing my voice for some reason. But yeah, I've got about this much done on the other part of the cardigan, and I'm frogging back right now to the ribbing just because I messed up this cable, this little cable right here. I read the directions wrong, so I gotta go back and fix it, but luckily I hadn't like knit up 3 feet without checking again. And I definitely think I'm going to be adding huge pockets to this once I finish it. I'll just knit a pocket shape and probably add a cute little cable on it. I found a cable work chart for a sort of pine cone motif, so I think that'd be really cute to put a pine cone motif on the pockets and then sew them on to the front. I don't think it'll look too out of place or interrupt this pattern too much. I'm really excited, and I'm pretty sure I got all of the yarn I'm going to need for this. I purchased this yarn when I was doing my last minute Christmas card shopping. I had to get some Christmas cards for friends and my great grandma, so I came across this yarn, and this yarn has always been that yarn that I look at when I go to the supermarket and really want to knit with, but can't justify knitting with it because, I don't know, it's not a fancy yarn, it's a Walmart yarn. I don't know. And that's kind of dumb. And I'm on a budget right now, so I can't really afford Wool in the Gang or, I don't know, some sort of designer yarn. So I decided to finally sort of, I don't know, satisfy that craving for this and purchase a ton of it and knit a cardigan with it, and hopefully I stop eyeballing it at the supermarket. Speaking of, I guess sweaters in general, I had a lot of black yarn left over from my Boheme sweater. I still have a skein of Knit Picks tweed yarn, and I am knitting a hat. I am knitting the Antlers toque, and I'm pretty sure I'll have enough yarn left over for a second hat for myself. This is as far as I've gotten on the first one. It's living in this little project bag that I sewed for myself. It's made from an old coat that I found at the thrift shop, and it was really beaten up, and it was on sale for $2, and the interior had this very, very vivid red satin lining. And it just like reminded me of something I don't know, somebody would wear to a casino. I'm not sure. And I used just some simple grid cotton fabric for the lining, and I think it looks very beautiful in photos. I'm very satisfied with how this bag turned out. It has a metal zip, and the coat is fraying right there, so I've got to fix that before it turns into a bigger problem. And right now it's holding some of my favorite enamel pins. This one's by Cultural Void. This one I got at a antique shop in Great Falls, where I used to live. I was so happy when I found it. It's a little ET pin. And this one is a quickened pin. If it'll focus, okay. I really love Quickened. She's sort of a tattoo. She has a YouTube channel that mainly focuses around getting tattooed and having tattoos and questions about tattoos, but there's a ton of other fun stuff, and I really, really love her content. But this is my Antlers toque. So far, I am knitting the adult size small, and I figured that I'd be able to knit it a bit longer and have sort of a slouchy beanie. When I'm not dressed up, I really just love wearing flannels and oversized cardigans and beanies and being super cozy. But I have a feeling that I'm just going to have to stick with the pattern, at least on this hat specifically, because it is so tight fitting that if I added extra length for a slouchy beanie, it wouldn't slouch. It'd sort of just look like a huge tube, and just wouldn't sit on my head the way I would like it to. So I think I'm going to actually mail this to my brother, because he wears a lot of sort of small, tight-fitting beanies, and I think that'll be nice for when he's out shoveling the snow, or maybe not jogging because it is wool and your forehead might get a bit itchy, but I think he might appreciate this. I'm not really sure if he'd like it, but I'll send it to him. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I will have enough for the adult size large, and then I can add in an extra repeat or two of the antlers cable pattern, and have a nice slouchy beanie for when I do not want to brush my hair. Let's see, what else am I working on? I guess that's it for finished for works in progress. I have some embroidery projects I want to talk about, since I have a lot less knitting related content. But anyways, I do embroider every once in a while. I really want to start embroidering some of my blouses and adding floral details to them in orange and brown colors because I'm really attracted to white blouses. I love white blouses, but I think it's getting to a point where it's really repetitive in my wardrobe. So I think it might be nice to sort of add that handmade touch and sort of make other blouses stick out and be different from one another, because honestly I have like 3 lace collar blouses and it's getting a bit ridiculous because they're all the same shade of cream. But anyways, this is an embroidery project that I started before I moved here, and he's looking kind of rough. I haven't gotten much work done on him. I'm planning to work on him more, maybe tonight and throughout the week, and finishing him up. But right now I've just got the basics done and the general shape of what I'm going for, and it's a little bat skeleton. This isn't cross stitch. I'm not using any really specific technique. I'm just putting stitches where I think they should go. This is what the back looks like. It's probably a bit more messy than your typical cross stitch or embroidery that comes with a pattern, because this isn't sketched out, this isn't planned out. I'm just doing what I feel. And once I finish the skeleton part of him, I'm actually going to go back over this this black sort of jean fabric with a satiny black thread and create the sort of silhouette of the rest of the bat's anatomy. So you'll see the wings in the black thread sort of pop out when you view it from the side, and his ears and little body and legs and tail. I think that's going to be very neat to have that extra little detail in there that I guess you'll only see once you look a bit closer. The satiny thread, I'm hoping, will sort of jump out and be noticeable because it is a different texture and sort of has more of a shine compared to this fabric. But I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this hoop specifically for this project. I might actually take it off and stain it, just because it is quite a plain color right now. I would like to have a dark brown embroidery hoop. Or I might take branches and wrap them around the embroidery hoop. And I was inspired by that by one of the lovely ladies I follow on Instagram. Her username is Liskindal. I believe it's Liskindal that does it. And she adds wreaths around her embroidery. And it's so beautiful. I want to do it myself. Actually really want to purchase something from her Etsy shop. I'm just waiting to see something I absolutely love 100% before I do. But I love her Instagram. You should go follow her because she's absolutely inspiring. But I'm not sure. I'll be working on him again soon. But I don't know, before I start any other project regarding embroidery, I really want to finish him up and have him, I don't know, hanging on the wall somewhere. Probably be boxed away because I'm still not in a proper place right now. Still in my temporary living arrangement. But anyways, another exciting embroidery project that I'm really excited to start is a Constellation Quilt. This was created by Haptic Labs, and what they do is take maps of popular places. I know they have a map of, say, Brooklyn, New York, and they translate it into a quilt. And so you buy these little packets to make a quilt for yourself. They do actually sell the finished quilts, although they are quite pricey, and you can just purchase a little DIY kit. I think this was like $25. I can't remember, it's been a while. But it comes with directions on how to make it, and this is the Haptic Lab DIY Constellation Quilt. And it gives you directions for, you know, basting, quilting, and binding, which I need because I'm still sort of a beginner quilter. I mean, I've made quilts before, but I've never really worked on fine-tuning my skills, so I still consider myself a novice quilter. But that's sort of how you're going to assemble it. They send you a template for you to embroider over, and what's really neat about this quilt specifically is not only is it a chart of the Northern Hemisphere, but it's inspired by the star notation system developed in the 1950s by H.A. Ray. And each star in their quilt design is represented by this, like, the star's apparent visual magnitude relative to the Earth. So all of these different markings sort of represent how big the stars actually look in the Northern Hemisphere, which is super cool. And so this is the little template they send you, and it is just, I'll show you this. It is just very easy to tear. It's sort of the texture of a dryer sheet, although a bit more crisp and a bit more tough. So once you finish sewing your quilt, you can pin this down onto it and just start embroidering away with your embroidery floss. And you can see all of the different symbols. So obviously that's a bigger looking star, and I'm super excited. They do have a full-size, I think queen size quilt for this project, but I wanted a wall hanging, so I got a rather small template to work with. So this is just what half of the template looks like, and there you go. And when I make this quilt, I'm actually going to add on little fabric hangers so I can add a rod and hang it up. I've been considering getting glow-in-the-dark embroidery floss for this project because it'd be really cool to turn off the lights and see the stars sort of glow. I'm not sure yet. I still have to order the fabric and stuff, and I'm not sure if I'll even get to ordering the fabric this month, just because I have a lot of other expenses to take care of. But I'm so excited to start that. It's going to be so neat. I was planning on getting a map of the Northern Hemisphere to hang on my wall, but now that I have that, it'll definitely be a lot more special and last a lot longer, so I am so happy with that. I say so a lot. I say and so a lot. I'm sorry. So anyways, that's it for, I guess, my little embroidery section. The last thing I want to talk about is little sort of fixer-upper projects that I'm planning to work on. Mostly it has to do with gluing stuff together with E6000. But I thought I might as well mention this on the podcast because I'm definitely a person that leans more towards the mend and make do side of things rather than purchasing new objects. The first thing I really need to fix is this necklace. This is one of my favorite necklaces. Goats, sheep, rams, pretty much anything with antlers or horns I love, and I used to wear this thing every day until his little antler broke off, so I can't wear him. So I have to go over him with E6000, and I'll probably add in maybe a bit of paper clip to help fasten his antler back on. And if that doesn't work, I'll at least add him to a cameo sort of background and then, you know, re-loop it through a chain so I can wear him again, just because this is a very special necklace to me and I'm so sad I can't wear it. The next little thing I have to repair, I keep sort of all of my repair projects and bobby pins inside of this pumpkin container. But the next thing I want to work on is a dandelion necklace. I got this pendant quite a while ago, and it is a little globe with an acorn top, and you can fill it with whatever you want. And when I had originally come across this, I was under the impression that the hole would be a lot bigger. So all I have to do is find some sandpaper so I can slowly and gently sand down that hole to make it wider so I can put in dandelion seeds. There are a lot of necklaces on Etsy that contain dandelion seeds. However, I thought it'd be more satisfying to make my own, and I haven't gotten to doing it because I just have to get sandpaper to fix that one thing so I can continue on my project. The next thing I want to do is work on a very, very small embroidery of the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, and use pearls, little tiny pearls for the stars, and then put it in this little dome pendant. Now I'm planning on embroidering on velvet fabric and using a very, very shiny embroidery floss. Honestly, I probably will just use thread from a sewing machine just because this is so small and the embroidery floss might be a bit too thick. I could de-ply the floss, but it's easier just to use thread. And then probably add on a pin backing because I don't really see myself wearing this as a necklace, but more so as a brooch. I'm not sure, but that is another project I'm super excited about getting on to. I just have to replenish some of my crafting supplies. The next thing I want to do, the next and last sort of small non-fiber related project I want to work on is finding a home for this guy. This is a small little hand felted bee created by the Whispering Wild on Instagram. She has an Etsy shop, and the detail put into him is so amazing. I don't think the camera's doing him justice, but I purchased him because he was such a special piece of art and amazing, you know. I can't even imagine making his little legs, and I just thought it was so beautiful and high quality, and I wanted to support the artist in some way. So I purchased him. And honestly, it's more like I adopted him because he hangs around, he follows me everywhere. I really kind of want to put a pin on him and wear him around, but I won't do that. I have a small little picture frame that is currently packed away that I'm going to paint bronze and then add velvet backing to and embroider some flowers on that bees are attracted to. It is only about the size of a small flip phone. It's not too big. So I really want to find a proper home for him because he has ended up in precarious situations where maybe he gets blown off of my counter. And if I have a cat anytime soon, I know my cat Junior would go after this thing and probably tear it apart. So I want a proper home for him. I thought about keeping it, this little bee inside a globe. However, I thought the glass sort of distorted him. So he's got to be sort of out in the open, and if I just lightly secure him to that picture frame, I'm pretty sure that'll be a perfect spot for him. Alright, so that's it for this episode. I'm sorry for saying so and so many times. I've really got to work on that. It's just a nervous habit of mine, I guess. But I'm so glad that you guys joined me again for this episode. Again, you can find me as Pikku Kimalainen on Instagram and Ravelry. There is a group for this podcast on Ravelry, and I promise I will update the show notes for this episode and the previous one. But thank you so much for watching, right?